Lone light slid through the glass atrium, turning marble floors into a mirror, as Maya Ellis stepped into Larkridge Capital's Midtown Atlanta lobby, ivory silk blouse crisp, wedding band warm against her palm. 12:07 p.m., the air hummed with elevator bells and low voices. Then a heel snapped toward her. Victoria Hale, HR director, pale blazer, tight ponytail, badge swinging, planted herself between Maya and the reception desk. "You can't be here," she said, voice cool enough to frost the ficus. "I'm meeting someone," Maya answered, steady, setting a small gift bag on the counter. "What someone?" Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. "We've had issues with uninvited visitors. You people wander in thinking the world owes you a tour." Phones lifted. A hush fell. Maya opened her wallet, sliding a driver's license forward. "Maya Ellis," Victoria glanced, scoffed, and with a theatrical sigh, picked up a sparkling tumbler from a nearby water station. Cold. Full. She threw it. The splash cracked like a slap. Water streamed down Maya's face, dark curls clinging to her cheeks, silk clinging to skin. A receptionist gasped. Someone whispered, "Is she filming?" Several were. A live stream icon pulsed red on a phone screen. "Now you're leaving," Victoria said, wiping her hand on her blazer as if contact alone were contaminant. "Security." Maya did not move. She drew a breath, chin lifted, eyes steady as her blouse dripped onto stone. The gift bag's ribbon darkened where droplets fell. Inside, a handwritten note and 2 reservations folded around a silver keychain waited for an anniversary lunch upstairs. She didn't mention it. She didn't plead. She let silence do what the water tried to do. Cool the heat. Footsteps gathered. Doors pinged. Somewhere above, a meeting neared its end. A guard's radio crackled. "On our way." Maya's phone buzzed once. She glanced at the screen, then at the elevators. What happened next would change everything. Morning eased over Atlanta as Maya Ellis wrapped a silver keychain engraved with 2 coordinates. The bistro, where she and Aaron had shared their first long lunch as newlyweds. 12 years later, she preferred gestures over spectacle. She would appear at Larkridge Capital without warning, hand him the key and steal him for an anniversary meal before the afternoon call. She slid the gift into a pale bag with a note that said only, "No speeches, just." The kitchen carried ordinary music. Kettle hiss, radio low, pencil scratches while Grace finished a worksheet. Maya pressed an ivory silk blouse, draped a blazer, and checked a planner dotted with light pencil, not ink. Aaron walked in barefoot, navy jacket over his arm, tie loose. He kissed her temple. "Morning, Professor." He used the nickname when her questions sharpened his thinking. "Board at 9, review at 11, compliance if Victoria insists." "Then you need a better lunch," Maya said, hiding the gift deeper in tissue. He laughed once, already scanning through talking points. Their marriage had grown on quiet practices, walks after dinner, small debriefs, fast apologies, long patience. He led the firm with a level tone. She consulted for health brands in cycles that kept evenings free. Grace skidded in with a loose lace. Maya tied the knot, kissed sunscreen into curls and said, "Bring 2 sketchbooks. You always share." The girl sprinted for the door. By 8:10, Maya buckled into her hybrid, the cul-de-sac still soft with shade. She checked the route, glanced at the clear tote holding the gift, and a reservation card, then decided not to email reception. Surprise carried more meaning than an entry on a calendar. Traffic thickened along Peachtree. A trumpet polished the morning with notes that receded between towers. Heat gathered on the glass. Maya rolled the window for a breath that smelled faintly of bread and espresso. Surprises ran on risk. Meetings slip, calendars pivot, tables vanish. Intention mattered more than perfection. She wanted Aaron to step outside the churn and remember the ground under his feet. At 8:52, she parked beneath Larkridge's tower and snapped a photo of the space number. 2 analysts joined her elevator, whispering about yield curves like code. They glanced at her tote and then at their shoes. People guessed roles constantly and changed those guesses. When you didn't rush to supply a label, the lobby held a chilled citrus smell and a sheen of glass. A concierge nodded. Maya returned the greeting and settled near a sculpture shaped like a folded sail. She checked lipstick, tucked a curl, and caught a look from a woman in slate that landed then slid away. Sometimes a room dimmed by a fraction when she arrived, as if a hand eased down a dial. She noticed, filed it, and kept her posture relaxed. At 9:03, she sent Aaron a heart and a coffee cup, then slipped the phone into the tote. She thought of their first apartment, the slumped sofa, the way they cut arguments short by asking, "What are we trying to defend right now?" Repairs mattered more than righteous speeches. Beyond the turnstiles, a receptionist handled 2 calls with practiced rhythm. Maya waited for a lull that refused to appear. Waiting rarely troubled her. A maintenance worker pushed a cart stacked with bottled water. One case started to slide. Maya caught it with a quick palm. "Thanks," he said, surprised. "They keep moving storage." She smiled. "Systems hate flexibility." He grinned and rolled on. 2 women in matching tans left a glass room, issued a glance in Maya's direction, and whispered until the door hushed behind them. A smile at the desk thinned when Maya didn't present a badge immediately. Conversations softened when she drew near, then restarted once she moved away. Nothing overt, everything cumulative. She pressed the ribbon flat on the gift bag and let her shoulders drop. By 9:27 she stepped to the desk. "Good morning. I'm here to see Aaron Ellis. No appointment. I can wait." The receptionist straightened by degrees. "Do you have a calendar entry?" Perfectly courteous, carefully procedural. "I can reach his assistant." "Thank you," Maya said. She didn't add titles or stories. Generosity sometimes meant letting processes move at their own speed. Another woman approached with a phone, asked the receptionist if there was an issue. Never looking at Maya, the answer arrived in a lower register. A nod, a pivot, heels tapping away. Not hostile, not welcoming. A room testing you while insisting no test existed. She took a seat in sunlight that warmed the sill and watched a trainee guard practice radio codes. An older guard offered corrections. The younger man listened, grateful. Shoulders. The board meeting upstairs had started at 9 and rarely ran beyond an hour. She pictured Aaron scanning a clock, then a spreadsheet already reorganizing his afternoon to make space. Her book club thread buzzed. She typed, paused, then sent a line that rose without effort. "Have you ever been judged before you even spoke?" This story might feel uncomfortably familiar. She set the phone aside, surprised by the pulse in her fingers and how the question did not feel hypothetical. At 9:58, she saw Victoria Hale crossing the mezzanine, tablet under her arm, mouth set for speed. Maya recognized the type: decisive, tidy, impatient with variables. That energy, appropriately channeled, could move mountains. Untempered, it ground through people. She chose optimism until behavior argued otherwise. Victoria's gaze swept the lobby, settled on the woman with the gift bag, and flickered impatience, maybe calculation. She checked her watch and cut toward reception. The temperature near the counter seemed to drop by a degree. Maya stood and smoothed her blazer. She rehearsed a simple line: "I'm meeting my husband for lunch after his meeting." No flexing, no defense, just information. If needed, she could show ID. She preferred trust to tests. Elevator numbers began their descent. 10 minutes likely remained for the board. A long stripe of light slid across the floor and touched the tips of Maya's shoes. She remembered the winter gala years earlier, when a coat attendant tried to route her to a service door until Aaron arrived with tickets and an apology as quick as a breath. The attendant blushed. The moment passed and everyone pretended it hadn't spoken. Victoria reached the desk and addressed the receptionist without turning an inch toward Maya. "We're tightening access this quarter. Make sure documentation is complete for anyone beyond the turnstile." The receptionist nodded, sent a glance at Maya that asked and answered nothing, and returned to the screen. Maya adjusted the tote and breathed through the first prickle of alert. Bias often wore clean language, policy, Portal. It brushed her sleeve and later claimed it never touched anything. She waited for a pause that didn't come. Bells chimed, voices churned, and above them, a conference room door must have opened by now. Somewhere a file contained a note labeled Reserve Anniversary. She pictured Aaron seeing the tiny coordinates, shoulders dropping, grin unguarded. 9:59. The light sharpened, footsteps gathered by the turnstiles. Maya lifted her chin, chose calm and prepared to make the introduction that should have been enough. Victoria Hale's approach was a current in the lobby, turning conversations toward silence. Tablet tucked against her ribs, ID lanyard swaying, she cut a clean line to the reception desk, heels clicking in precise intervals, her gaze locked on the woman with the pale gift bag, eyes narrowing as if confirming a suspicion. "You're not cleared," she said without greeting, voice flat, tone edged in authority. Maya steadied her shoulders. "I'm here to see Aaron Ellis. He's expecting me after his board meeting." "That's not how we work," Victoria replied, already gesturing to the receptionist for backup. "No badge, no calendar entry, no reason for you to be in this lobby." She pivoted slightly, allowing two analysts to slip by but keeping her body angled to block Maya's view of the turnstiles. The receptionist cleared her throat. She offered to wait. "She can wait outside," Victoria cut in, smile tightening into something performative for the small crowd that was beginning to form near the elevators. "We've had enough situations with people walking in off the street." The pause before situations was deliberate, heavy enough for anyone listening to read their subtext into it. Phones lifted in subtle arcs, camera lenses catching the curve of Victoria's mouth, the way her hand skimmed the top of the security desk as if claiming territory. A junior associate in a charcoal suit whispered to another, "Is she serious?" Maya took a slow breath. "I'm not from the street," she said evenly. "I'm Aaron Ellis's wife." She reached into her tote, pulling out her driver's license, but Victoria didn't lean forward to look. "That's cute," Victoria said, the words shaped to land like a jab masked as humor. "I can print one of those online in 5 minutes." She turned to the receptionist. "Security, please." A guard's radio crackled across the lobby, its sound drawing more onlookers from the mezzanine rail above. Someone near the sculpture murmured, "Isn't that the CEO's wife?" The rumor traveled quickly, intersecting with the hum of text notifications and the quiet flick of phone screens starting live streams. Maya could feel the temperature shift, the air tighter now, the awareness sharper. She placed the ID on the counter and let her hand fall away. The gift bag, pale and neat, sat beside it like evidence no one cared to examine. "You'll need to leave before this becomes an issue," Victoria said, raising her voice just enough to carry. "We maintain standards here. We can't let anyone waltz in, claim connections, and disrupt operations." She angled her chin toward the mezzanine, ensuring her words projected upward to the managers watching from above. The young analyst from before edged closer, phone angled discreetly. "This is going viral," he whispered to his companion, who kept recording without breaking eye contact with the scene. Victoria's posture widened slightly, hands on her hips. "I'm trying to be polite," she continued, "but you're making this harder than it needs to be." "I'm standing here quietly," Maya replied, tone steady, though the back of her neck warmed under the weight of every camera lens. "You're the one raising your voice." That earned a quick, incredulous laugh from Victoria. "Oh, now I'm the problem. You walk into a restricted space without clearance, and suddenly I'm the villain." She turned slightly toward the crowd, as if recruiting them as witnesses to her version of the truth. A ping from the elevators announced a new wave of employees spilling into the lobby. Their eyes caught on the tableau. Two women, one holding her ground, the other radiating authority sharpened into something colder. The phones rose higher. On the mezzanine, a department head murmured into a headset, "Get comms ready, something's happened." Victoria stepped closer to Maya, the scent of sharp citrus from her perfume cutting through the cooler air. "Here's what's going to happen," she said in a low, firm voice meant to sound private, but pitched just high enough for those nearby to hear. "You're going to walk out, or security will escort you, and if you think your relationship is going to protect you, think again." Maya's fingers curled briefly against the side of her tote before she released them. "I'm not leaving," she said, The murmur in the lobby swelled. A barista from the in-house cafe leaned on the counter to get a better view. Someone muttered, "This is bad optics." Victoria turned, scanning the crowd. "Everyone here has work to do," she announced, a false brightness in her tone. "Let's not turn this into a spectacle." Yet she didn't lower her voice or step away. She thrived in the performance of control, knowing the audience wasn't leaving. The guard arrived, older, with a slow gait and a face that held the kind of caution learned from years of intervening in situations that spun too easily. "What's the issue?" he asked, looking from Victoria to Maya. "She's trespassing," Victoria said immediately, refusing to leave, "claims to be someone she's not." "I haven't refused to identify myself," Maya countered, motioning toward the ID still untouched on the desk. "I'm here for Aaron Ellis." The guard's gaze flicked to the name, then to Victoria. "That's the CEO's name. Exactly why we're handling it carefully," Victoria snapped. "Anyone can Google that and make a claim." Above them, a phone camera caught the exchange, the frame tight on Victoria's dismissive hand wave. A viewer on the stream typed, "If that's who I think it is, this is about to blow up." Hearts and shocked face emojis cascaded on the screen. Maya stayed still, her posture straight but not rigid, her voice calm. "You can verify with his assistant in less than 2 minutes. I don't take orders from visitors," Victoria said, cutting the air between them like a door closing. "We have a process, and you're not part of it." The older guard hesitated, clearly weighing something, but Victoria's glare pressed him into stillness. "Step outside," he said quietly to Maya, though without force. The hum of recording devices was now unmistakable. Soft buzzes, faint clicks, the sound of fingers swiping across glass. Somewhere in the mezzanine, a younger employee muttered, "If you think this couldn't happen in your workplace, think again." Victoria's voice cut through. "I'm giving you one last chance before this escalates further." Her tone implied generosity, though her eyes held no such softness. Maya bent slightly to retrieve her ID, sliding it back into her wallet without breaking eye contact. "I'll wait here," she said again, each word clear. Victoria's jaw tightened. She reached for the water station, fingers wrapping around a chilled tumbler. "Fine, have it your way." She lifted the glass, her movement roaring in the crowd like the inhale before a storm. The scene sharpened in every direction, phone cameras focusing, eyes widening, whispers pausing. One woman in a green blazer mouth, "Is she re—" The first droplets clung to the rim as Victoria tilted the glass. The act was deliberate, the moment stretched thin enough for everyone watching to feel the heat of what was about to happen. A live stream viewer typed, "This is going to be evident." Then, cold, sharp and complete, the water left the glass in a clean arc, striking Maya's face and blouse. Gasps broke from the mezzanine. The room felt smaller, tighter, as if the air itself recoiled. Maya did not step back. She blinked once, water tracing the line of her jaw, and set the gift bag on the counter with quiet precision. Victoria placed the empty tumbler on the desk, a faint smirk curling her mouth. "Security will show you out." Phones were still up, the crowd was still there, and the image, water dripping from silk, a gift bag untouched, a woman standing unshaken, was already traveling beyond the glass walls of the lobby. 12:01 p.m. The lobby held its breath. Water threaded from Maya's blouse, darkening silk, tapping marble like a clock. Victoria placed the empty glass on the counter with a bright clink, eyes flicking to the mezzanine where new faces pressed the rail. Elevator numbers ticked down. "Step away from the turnstiles," Victoria said, pointing, drawing an invisible border across the floor. "Restricted area." Maya didn't move. She dabbed her lashes dry with a handkerchief, set it neatly beside a pale gift bag, and kept her voice level. "I'm waiting for my husband. He'll be done soon." "Security," Victoria told the older guard, tone clipped. "Escort her out before the board adjourns." She angled her body across the turnstile lane, a mannequin of policy blocking the path. Phones lifted like periscopes, live streams multiplied. A tech recruiter across the street tuned in. A barista filmed between cappuccinos. A legal intern typed, "Save the video, don't comment from your work account." A caption popped onto one screen, "Larkridge lobby incident," while hearts and shocked faces poured upward. The mezzanine was filled shoulder to shoulder. A senior analyst folded his arms, not filming but not leaving. The receptionist breathed shallowly, hands hovering over keys. Victoria pivoted toward the crowd, chin raised, voice bright for the room. "Last warning," she said, pointing at the glass doors. "Out." Maya met the gesture with silence. The older guard edged forward, palms open. He tapped Maya's elbow, the slightest touch. She kept her ground. "I will move when my husband arrives. Don't make this harder," Victoria said, a thin smile cutting her words. "You're trespassing." "I offered identification," Maya replied. "Verify it." "One call." "We verify through process," Victoria answered, tapping her tablet. "Process says you don't belong here." She slid to seal the turnstile, heels planted, shoulders squared as if bracing for a sprint she intended to prevent. 12:03. The elevator display jumped to 12. The junior associate whispered. HR escalated. She threw water. The woman's calm. "I think she's—" He stopped when Victoria's glare cut upward like a beam. A second guard arrived, younger, hand near his radio. "Ma'am, please step outside until we sort this." "I'm happy to wait right here," Maya said. Victoria shifted closer, shoulder grazing Maya in a soft shove disguised as an adjustment. She refused. She told the guards, louder now, "Remove her." Phones leaned in. Someone on the mezzanine called. "Careful." The younger guard reached for Maya's forearm, then froze when the older guard shook his head. Barely a move, but decisive. "Let's verify first," the older guard murmured. "We are done verifying," Victoria snapped. "The meeting breaks any minute." She looked at her watch. T-12, 12:04. Comments spooled. Get names, record badges, blur bystanders. A former employee wrote, "This tracks." Couriers paused by the glass to film. The receptionist dialed. Victoria pressed end. "Chain of custody," she said, as if words were helmets. "We won't disturb the executive floor over a fabrication." "Call his assistant," Maya said evenly. "Enough," Victoria said, and stepped in front of Maya, blocking the sightline to the elevator bay. Maya's heel touched the gift bag. The ribbon scraped the marble. "Hail," the older guard said, voice firmer. "Ease off proximity." "Noted," she replied without moving. 12:05. A second row formed at the rail, phones peeking between elbows. Someone breathed. "Legal's going to combust." A marketing manager created a chat named Fire Drill. "Lobby crisis. Stay invisible, no company devices." Too late. Thousands of screenshots have already been taken elsewhere. Victoria scribbled on her tablet and handed it to the younger guard. "Incident log. Trespasser. Non-compliant. Potential impersonation." "I stated my name," Maya said, "for the record and the room. I offered identification." "Alleged identification," Victoria said, performing doubt for the archive. "Documentation after she exits." "I won't step into the heat for your comfort," Maya said. Her wedding band flashed in a slice of mezzanine light. 12:06. The elevator display paused at 8. Someone posted a grainy clip of a conference room door opening. Rumor rippled through chat bubbles. "Meeting's ending. He's coming down." Lev counts surged. Friends, rivals, a local journalist who recognized the atrium sculpture. "You've chosen spectacle," Victoria said, gesturing toward the phones. "That won't force our hand." "I chose lunch," Maya answered. "You chose the—" "You people always play the victim," Victoria hissed. Low enough to deny later. Two mics caught it. Captions auto-rendered the phrase in white letters. Comments ignited. 12:07. "Ms. Hale, please," the receptionist whispered. Victoria touched the tumbler again, then shoved it aside, pointing at the door. The motion sharp, almost triumphant. "Final warning." Maya tilted her head. A drop slipped into her collar. "No." A wave of sound ran the length of the lobby. The younger guard rubbed his scalp. The older guard stared at the wall clock. 5 minutes, he said under his breath. "Let the man come." At 12:08, two executives on the 10th floor saw the crowd and retreated into the car. A compliance officer typed the future policy: never adjudicate identity in public. Verify private. Victoria faced the mezzanine. Back to work, she called, then braced the turnstile again, palm open. Stop. When Maya shifted half a step to reclaim space, Victoria mirrored her, sharpening the angle. The older guard slid between them, a narrow human buffer. 12. The intercom clicked, then stayed mute. Streams condensed into hashtags. Verify, don't vilify. Larkridge lobby. Policy is people. A community organizer posted, if you think this couldn't happen in your workplace, think again. The line climbed faster than heart. Document a refusal. Victoria ordered. We'll pursue trespass charges. You won't, the older guard said. Louder now. Slow down. What you call slow is dereliction, she replied. 12 and elevator. 4. The crowd's hum braided into a single wire. Outside, a courier held the door, so strangers could film. The receptionist's fingers hovered over the phone, then withdrew under Victoria's stare. Ma'am, the younger guard said to Maya, please step back. He traced a slight arc in the air, careful not to Maya angled a half-pace aside, the gift bag thumping her calf. She fixed her eyes on the mirrored panel that would show him first. 12:11. A fresh stream from the mezzanine appeared with the caption, HR meltdown at Larkridge. Possible discrimination. Viewers spy. A co-working space across the block. Threw the feed onto a conference screen. A producer messaged, can we use your footage? The junior associate typed, blur bystanders. Victoria clocked the swell and doubled down. We do not bend to bystanders or mobs, she declared. We follow the handbook. Handbooks don't outrank decency, the older guard said. 12 elevator. 1. Bells chimed. Phones rose higher, as if they could pull the car faster. Victoria planted a hand on the turnstile rail and leaned, body forming a legal diagram. The younger guard lifted his hands again, helpless paddles in a fast river. Maya smoothed damp silk, squared her shoulders. In the mirror of the panel, a door slid open below the glowing numeral. The hush wrapped the lobby. Breath synchronized. Someone whispered, here he comes, and every camera locked on the silver doors as they began to part. A familiar silhouette stepped forward, and the room seemed to tilt toward consequence and truth. Erin Ellis stepped from the executive elevator into the charged stillness of the lobby, jacket unbuttoned, tie loosened from an hour of boardroom debate. He registered the phones first, then the unnatural density of bodies pressed to the mezzanine rail, and finally the damp glint of water running down the front of his wife's ivory blouse. The gift bag beside her was instantly familiar. He had chosen the ribbon last week. His stride lengthened. Maya didn't move toward him. She stood in the same position she'd held through the countdown, posture upright, gaze steady, the slightest tilt of her chin acknowledging his arrival without breaking the reality of what he was walking into. Erin's eyes cut to Victoria. Explain. She entered without clearance. Victoria said, voice smooth, refused to leave, became confrontational. She's my wife, Erin interrupted, not raising his voice, but the words carried enough to ripple through the mezzanine. Phones shifted focus. Victoria's mouth tightened, but she recovered quickly. Sir, with respect, anyone can claim, I said. Erin repeated, slower, she is my wife. Maya Ellis. He glanced at the older guard, who nodded once, relief flickering across his face. A junior associate on the mezzanine whispered, it's true, and the confirmation darted through the crowd like a current. Leave streams caught the shift, the straightening of shoulders, the abrupt stillness of a few who had been smirking moments earlier. Erin's gaze moved to the receptionist. Did she offer identification? Yes, the receptionist said, fingers twisting together. It's on the desk. Erin picked up the license, turned it over, and set it down with a quiet precision that read louder than any outburst. He looked back at Victoria. And you didn't verify this because it's procedure to avoid disturbing. You disturbed an entire lobby, Erin said, his tone still level but edged with steel. And you humiliated my wife in front of half this building. That's your procedure. Victoria's tablet wavered slightly in her grip. I was acting to protect the company. Erin stepped closer, lowering his voice just enough for the words to feel heavier. From what? From a woman bringing me a gift on our anniversary. From the truth of who belongs here. Phones captured the tightness in her jaw, the flash of calculation in her eyes. Somewhere in the mezzanine, someone muttered, "This is going to be policy training for the next decade." Aaron turned to Maya, his expression softening, and reached for her hand. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," Maya said, voice even. "Just wet." She lifted her chin toward the mezzanine. "They've all seen what happened." "I'm sure they have," Aaron said, glancing upward at the rows of watching faces. "And so will everyone else." He faced Victoria again. "Security footage." The older guard spoke up immediately. "Multiple angles. Also, other recordings." His eyes flicked to the sea of phones. Aaron nodded. "Good. Save everything. No deletions." He stepped past Victoria, gesturing toward the turnstiles. "Maya, come upstairs. We'll have lunch, then we'll address this." Victoria moved to block them instinctively, then froze when Aaron's gaze cut to her hand on the rail. She withdrew it slowly. "Sir, perhaps we should discuss this privately." "No," Aaron said. "We'll discuss it exactly where it happened in public. Because what happens in public should be answered in public." The words struck the crowd like a gavel. The live stream comments swelled. "Finally, accountability in real time. Watch this change everything." Victoria straightened, drawing on the authority she had wielded moments ago. "I believe you're overreacting to an unfortunate misunderstanding." Aaron's brow lifted slightly. "Misunderstanding is forgetting a name. Misunderstanding is mistaking someone for a courier. You threw water on my wife and tried to remove her from her building." "It was a lapse in judgment," Victoria said quickly, voice thinning. "It was a choice," Aaron corrected. "A choice to assume the worst, to escalate instead of verify, to protect your ego instead of our values." On the mezzanine, a department head exchanged a look with legal counsel. The story was already too visible to spin into something harmless. Aaron glanced at the crowd. "If you've recorded this, keep it. The company won't retaliate. The record matters." His voice dropped slightly, pitched toward every mic. "What if one moment could change an entire company's culture? You're about to watch it happen." Victoria opened her mouth, then closed it again when Aaron's phone buzzed. He answered on speaker. "Yes." His assistant's voice was tight. "Sir, compliance and PR are in your office. News outlets are already requesting comment, and the clip is trending." Aaron ended the call and looked at Maya. "Let's go upstairs. You deserve to sit somewhere warm and dry before we take the next step." They walked toward the elevator together, the crowd parting in a hush. Victoria stood motionless, the tablet limp in her hands, the water tumbler still sitting on the counter like evidence of a crime that had just rewritten the day's agenda. As the elevator doors closed, the murmur of the lobby returned, louder now, threaded with the energy of change beginning to move. The executive elevator opened again less than 15 minutes later, and Aaron Ellis stepped out with Maya at his side. Her blouse changed to a simple black silk from his office wardrobe. Her hair pulled back, the lobby had not emptied. If anything, the crowd had grown. Word had reached departments that rarely ventured down midday, and the mezzanine was packed shoulder to shoulder. Phones tilted forward like a field of mirrors catching the light. Aaron stopped in the center of the marble floor, directly where the water had hit earlier. He turned toward Victoria, who stood near the reception desk with her tablet hugged to her chest, flanked by the 2 security guards. "Miss Hale," Aaron said, his voice carrying in the kind of way that didn't require shouting, "we're going to clear this up now." "Sir, perhaps this would be better handled in the same space where it happened," Aaron cut in, gesturing at the semicircle of employees and in front of the same people who saw it. "That includes the cameras, both ours and theirs." He nodded toward the cluster of phone. "Nothing off the record." Victoria's shoulders lifted as she took a slow breath, the movement betraying a flicker of nerves. "I acknowledge there was an incident," she began. "I intended to protect the integrity of our workplace." Aaron tilted his head. "And you do that by throwing water on someone without verifying who they are." "It was a miscalculation," she said, trying for firmness. "An unfortunate misunderstanding." Maya's gaze stayed fixed on her, calm but unblinking. "You looked at my license," she said quietly. "You heard my name." She did. The receptionist confirmed, voice barely above a whisper, but the sound carried. "It was on the desk." She didn't check. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The older guard nodded once. "I told her to verify," she refused. Aaron let the silence stretch, giving the words room to sink into every phone mic. "Our values state that we treat every person with respect. Policy says we verify before we act. You violated both." He stepped forward, close enough for Victoria to see that his expression held no ambiguity. "Effective immediately, your employment here is terminated." A sharp intake of breath moved through the lobby. Several phones wobbled in their owners' hands. Victoria's lips parted, shock flashing across her face. "You're firing me. Without a review." "Without you had your review," Aaron said. "It happened right here, in front of dozens of witnesses, and it was live-streamed to an audience outside these walls. That's as transparent as it gets." Her grip on the tablet tightened. "This will damage my reputation." "You damaged it yourself," Maya said evenly. "I just stood here." The older guard stepped aside as Aaron gestured toward the doors. "HR will process your separation. You'll have an escort to collect your items. Security will ensure no footage is deleted or altered." From the mezzanine, someone called down. "Good." Another voice, quieter but still caught on multiple recordings, said, "About time." Victoria's eyes darted to the crowd, searching for support, but found only a wall of faces reflecting her image at her through their screens. She turned to leave, her heels striking the marble in sharp, uneven beats, the sound growing fainter as she reached the doors. Aaron faced the lobby again. "This company will not protect behavior that undermines our principles," he said, voice steady. "If you see something that violates those principles, you speak up. You document. You protect each other, not just the brand." Phones caught every word. A few employees lowered theirs, no longer as bystanders but as participants in the shift of turn. Maya stood beside him, not as a silent figure this time, but as part of the moment. "It's not about me being the CEO's wife," she said, her voice firm. "It's about the fact that if I were anyone else, I'd be walking out in humiliation right now with no one to say it was wrong. That can't be how we operate." A ripple of agreement moved through the lobby. The junior associate who had streamed the confrontation earlier raised his phone higher. "You want this part recorded?" he called. "Yes," Aaron said without hesitation. "Record it, share it, save it. Let there be no doubt about what we stand for." Maya glanced around the room, meeting as many eyes as she could. "We all know bias doesn't always look like a headline," she said. "Sometimes it's a pause before you're helped, or a name doubted, or credentials dismissed. What happened today wasn't an isolated mistake. It was a symptom, and it's on all of us to catch symptoms before they become the culture." The mezzanine had gone silent again, not out of shock this time, but in the way people quiet down when they're leaning in to listen. Aaron nodded. "There will be reforms. They start now. Tomorrow every department head will meet with compliance to review verification procedures and bias training requirements. We will publish our diversity metrics quarterly, with full transparency. No exceptions, no excuse." Someone in the back called. "What about past incidents?" "We'll review them," Aaron said. "If corrective action is needed, we'll take it, regardless of the timeline." The older guard stepped forward. "Sir, the footage from today, how do you want it archived?" "Unedited," Aaron said. "Multiple copies, one for legal, one for compliance, and one for training. And I want a copy sent to every manager by the end of the day." Phones dipped. Recording paused, as if the crowd collectively realized this wasn't just a scene anymore. It was the beginning of a policy shift. Aaron glanced at Maya. "Anything you want to add before we close this chapter?" She hesitated only a sec. "What happened to me today can happen to anyone. The only difference is who's willing to call it out and who has the power to make it right. We can't rely on luck for that. We have to build it in." A final murmur passed through the lobby, followed by the sound of someone clapping quiet. It spread, hesitant at first, then stronger, echoing against glass and marble, until the space felt charged with something entirely different from the tension that had filled it an hour ago. Aaron gave a short nod, then turned toward the elevators. Back to work, everyone. And remember, culture isn't what's written on the wall. It's what you do when no one's watching. Or, as today proved, when everyone. They left together, the applause still rolling through the building, the moment already fixed in hundreds of videos destined to reach far beyond the lobby's glass wall. ChatGPT said, by the time Aaron and Maya reached the executive floor, the company's crisis response machinery was already in motion. The PR director, compliance officer, and general counsel were seated in the boardroom, laptops open, speakerphones lit, the tension in the air sharp enough to taste. A wall screen displayed a muted news segment. Larkridge Capital's logo next to a still image of Maya in the lobby, water streaking down silk. Victoria's arm frozen mid-gesture. The Chiron Road, CEO's wife confronted in workplace incident. Clip goes viral. Aaron closed the door. Status, the PR director, Andrea, exhaled. The video's on 3 major outlets already. Social media engagement is in the hundreds of thousands. Verify, don't vilify is trending in the US, Canada, and the UK. The narrative is overwhelmingly in your favor. Public accountability, leadership integrity, but there's collateral. Define collateral, Aaron said. Clients asking if their accounts are safe from bias-related disruption. Andrea replied. 2 potential investors want reassurances, and an advocacy group for workplace equity just tagged us in a post demanding formal reforms. They're framing this as a test case. The general counsel, Harris, tapped his pen. From a legal standpoint, Victoria's termination is clean, documented misconduct in front of witnesses and cameras. The risk isn't wrongful termination. It's the possibility she claims defamation or hostile work environment. Her attorney will push for a settlement. Given the visibility, we need to decide whether to negotiate or fight. Maya listened quietly from her seat beside Aaron, her hands folded over the gift bag she still carried. If you fight, it's because the principle matters, she said. If you settle, you signal you're willing to pay to bury the details. People will read it either way. Harris nodded. Exactly why this is delicate. Aaron leaned forward. I'm not paying to bury the truth. We'll fight and we'll win, because we have the record. Compliance officer Priya adjusted her glasses. It's not just about this one case. Internal audits show a pattern. Higher rejection rates for applicants with certain names. Disproportionate security interventions for non-white visitors. It's subtle, but it's there. If that data gets pulled in discovery, we'll need a response ready. Aaron gestured toward her. Then pull it ourselves. Release it proactively with a plan to address it. We own the story, or the story owns us. Andrea hesitated. You realize that means admitting fault publicly. It means telling the truth before someone else weaponizes it, Aaron said. A junior legal aide entered with a tablet. Sir, an op-ed from a former employee just went live. She says Victoria's behavior wasn't an anomaly, mentions other managers by name. She's calling for industry-wide policy change. Maya took the tablet, scanned the piece, and handed it back. She's right, and she's giving you an opening to lead instead of react. Aaron looked at Andrea. Draft a statement. We're launching a third-party review of all HR procedures. We'll make the results public. Include timelines and names of the firms we're engaging. Priya nodded. I can have 3 candidates for independent auditors by tomorrow morning. Make it today, Aaron said. Harris frowned. The board will want to know the financial impact. This could spook certain partners. Then we remind them that trust is more valuable than a single quarter's returns, Aaron replied. We'll absorb the dip if it means protecting the long-term brand. Andrea's phone vibrated. Media request from the Financial Herald. They want you and Maya for a joint interview this week. Maya looked to Aaron. If we do it, it's not just about what happened to me. It's about what needs to happen to prevent it from happening to anyone else. That's exactly why we'll do it, Aaron said. Priya glanced at her laptop. Also, internal Slack channels are buzzing. Some employees are calling this the most honest moment they've ever seen from leadership. Others are nervous about what reforms mean for their department. Schedule department listening sessions, Aaron said. Starting with security and HR. I'll lead the first one myself. Harris closed his notebook. If we manage this well, you'll not only diffuse a crisis, you'll set a precedent. Aaron leaned back, eyes sweeping the table. That's the point. This isn't damage control. It's a transformation. Maya's voice was quiet, but carried in the still room. One voice can echo far beyond the room it's spoken in. That's what's happening now. Don't waste. The boardroom fell silent for a beat, the weight of her words settling over polished wood and glass. Outside the window, the city kept moving, traffic lights shifting, office towers blinking awake to the story that had already left the confines of this building. Aaron stood. We have our direction. Andrea, the statement by the end of the day. Priya, auditors on deck in 3 hours. Harris, prepare for legal pushback. And everyone, remember that this isn't about protecting me or Maya. It's about protecting every person who walks through those doors, regardless of who they know or don't know. As they left the room, the muted news segment on the wall updated with a new headline. Larkridge Capital promises industry-leading reform. After viral bias incident, the clip played again. Water flying, Maya standing still, Aaron arriving, but now, beneath it, the conversation had shifted. Commentators spoke of leadership, accountability, and the rare choice to confront injustice publicly rather than bury it. In the hallway, employees paused to let them pass, their expressions a mix of curiosity, respect, and something more challenging to define. Hope, maybe, the kind that came when a company's lofty values finally matched its actions. For the first time that day, Maya felt the air ease in her chest, not because the work was done, but because the most challenging part, making them see, was over. Now came the more challenging part still, making it last. 3 weeks after the lobby incident, the atrium of Larkridge Capital looked different, not in its marble floors or glass walls, but in the way people moved through it. Security checkpoints were still in place, but now they operated under a verification-first policy that Aaron had announced personally. Every guard had undergone intensive bias training, facilitated by an outside firm whose contract was posted publicly on the company's website. A screen near the reception desk displayed quarterly diversity metrics in real time, updated automatically from HR's database. It was the first tangible proof that the reforms weren't just words. Maya walked past the screen one Tuesday morning, coffee in hand, the gift bag from that day now tucked in her office as a reminder. She had agreed to serve as special advisor for equity and culture, a role created after the board unanimously voted to formalize her involvement. Her desk wasn't tucked away, it sat on the executive floor, but outside Aaron's office, where anyone could approach without passing layers of approval. Her first task had been to meet with every department, not in polished conference rooms, but in their workspaces, from the buzzing sales floor to the quiet rows of compliance cubicles. She asked each group the same 3 questions. What's working? What's broken? What do you wish leadership knew? The answers filled 2 binders and a password-protected database. Patterns emerged. Hiring bottlenecks for specific candidates. Security protocols applied unevenly. Promotion pathways that favored familiarity over merit. Maya didn't just collect the data, she turned it into policy drafts. One of her proposals, blind resume screening, was implemented company-wide within a month. Another, rotating hiring panels to include diverse perspectives, was scheduled to launch the following quarter. In weekly updates, she shared progress with all staff, listing what had been completed, what was in motion, and what still needed work. Transparency became as routine as payroll. Aaron supported the changes, but deliberately kept his voice secondary. This is Maya's work, he told the board. She's not here to be a figurehead. She's here to lead. The reforms extended beyond hiring. Security now records not just incidents, but every request for verification, creating a data trail to detect patterns before they become problems. HR implemented mandatory annual training on cultural competency, not as a checkbox but as an interactive workshop, led by specialists with lived experience. Even the company's vendor contracts were reviewed to ensure they reflected Larkridge's stated values. The ripple effect reached outside the company. An industry trade group invited Maya to speak at a national conference on workplace equity. She accepted, delivering a keynote titled From Incident to Industry Change, Building Systems That Protect Everyone. Clips from her talk circulated widely, cementing Larkridge's reputation not just for the scandal, but for the transformation that followed. And then there was Victoria. After her termination, she had gone silent for weeks. A brief statement through her attorney claimed she had been unfairly characterized, but no lawsuit followed. Industry contacts whispered that the viral clip made her untouchable in traditional HR circles. Then unexpectedly, an op-ed appeared under her name in a business journal. In it she admitted to a failure of judgment, rooted in assumptions I didn't realize I carried, and described attending a bias awareness program voluntarily. She didn't ask for forgiveness, only acknowledged that she had been wrong, and that watching the reforms at Larkridge had made her reconsider her career. Maya read the piece twice before forwarding it to Aaron. "Do you believe her?" he asked. "I believe she's learning," Maya said. "That's the point of all this. Not just to punish, but to change." They didn't bring her back. Trust once broken in such a public way couldn't simply be restored, but the acknowledgement mattered. Maya mentioned the article in her next staff update, noting that growth was possible even after failure. Inside Larkridge, the shift in atmosphere was gradual but fundamental. Employees who had once kept their heads down now spoke up in listening sessions. Managers began citing the new policies in daily decisions. The receptionist who had witnessed the incident told Maya one afternoon, "It feels different here now, like I can tell someone when something's off, and they'll hear me." Financially, the company recovered faster than predicted. Clients appreciated the proactive transparency. Two investors who had paused their commitments came back after seeing the quarterly diversity report. Media coverage shifted from the viral clip to the company's role as a case study in crisis-driven reform. One Friday evening, as the building emptied, Maya stood again in the lobby, where it had all begun. The water station was still there, the same brand of glass tumblers neatly stacked. She ran her fingers along the counter, remembering the cold splash, the stunned faces, the hum of live stream. Now, instead of tension, the air carried the soft rhythm of cleaning crews and the low hum of an after-hours elevator. Aaron joined her, hands in his pockets. "It's strange," he said, "seeing the same space but knowing it's not the same place anymore." "That's the point," Maya replied. "We didn't just change the rules, we changed the culture." He looked around the lobby, then back at her. "You've done more in 2 months than most committees do in 2 years. "We've done it," she corrected. "One voice can start the echo, but it only lasts if others keep it going." They left together, the glass doors reflecting the city's nightlights. Inside, the reforms they had built continued to work quietly, reshaping not just the company's policies, but the way its people saw each other. The redemption wasn't a headline anymore. It was in the everyday moments no one filmed, the kind where respect had become the default rather than the exception. Said 1 year later, Larkridge Capital no longer looked like the company that had made headlines for the wrong reasons. The reforms born in the chaos of that lobby incident had not only held, they had expanded, becoming a model other corporations sought to replicate. The diversity metrics screen in the atrium now scrolled through not just numbers but stories, employee testimonials about fair promotions, successful hires from communities previously overlooked, and examples of bias interrupted before it became harm. The data spoke for itself. Hiring rates for underrepresented candidates had increased by 38%. Employee satisfaction scores in anonymous surveys had risen 22%. Complaints to HR about discrimination had dropped sharply, and more importantly, the complaints that did come in were being addressed in days rather than months. Industry publications ranked Larkridge in the top 5 companies for workplace equity, a list it had never appeared on before. Maya, still serving as special advisor for equity and culture, had grown into the role with the precision of someone who understood both the stakes and the pace of real change. Her calendar was full of department meetings, leadership training sessions, and calls with executives from other firms asking, "How did you do it?" She never gave them a neat, 3-step answer. "We committed to never looking away," she'd say. "We made the invisible visible and we acted on it." Erin had stepped back from being the sole public face of the reforms, ensuring that credit and responsibility was shared across teams. Department heads were expected to report quarterly on progress, not just to him but to the entire staff in open forums. Those forums were live-streamed for remote employees, archived for anyone who wanted to revisit them, and open to anonymous questions submitted in advance. Externally, Larkridge's transformation had sparked a ripple across the industry. 3 other major financial firms had adopted their blind resume screening process. 2 more implemented the rotating hiring panels Maya had designed. The trade group where she'd spoken months after the incident had invited her back, this time to present alongside leaders from companies that had followed Larkridge's lead. It was the rare kind of influence that went beyond branding and into the infrastructure of how businesses operated. On the anniversary itself, the company hosted an event in the same lobby where it had all started. This time, the crowd wasn't there to watch a confrontation, they were there to celebrate. Employees stood side by side, no mezzanine divide between upstairs and downstairs. The diversity metric screen glowed above them, the latest numbers updated that morning. A small plaque had been installed near the reception desk, engraved with a simple line, "Accountability is our first policy." Maya took the small stage Erin had set near the center of the atrium. She looked out at the crowd, at the guards in crisp uniforms, the receptionists, the managers, the analysts and the board members who had agreed to be present not as overseers but as participants. "A year ago," she began, "I stood over there with water dripping down my blouse, and I didn't say much. I didn't have to. The moment spoke for itself. But what happened after that wasn't guaranteed. We could have treated it as an isolated embarrassment, something to manage and move past. Instead, we chose to see it as proof that our systems weren't as strong as we thought, and we fixed them." She didn't look at notes. Every word came from memory, sharpened by the work of the past 12 months. Some of you were here that day. Some of you watched from upstairs. Some of you saw it online before you even heard it from the company. And every one of you has been part of what we've built since. This isn't my win or Aaron's win. It's ours. Because change doesn't stick when it belongs to one person. It lasts when it belongs to everyone. Aaron stepped up beside her. "We learned that values mean nothing if they can't survive contact with reality. And we learned that the hardest moments, if you face them directly, can become your strongest foundation." That's what happened here. He turned to the reception desk, where the same receptionist from that day stood smiling faintly. "The difference now is that if a situation like that ever started again, I know it would be stopped before it reached me. Not because of fear of consequence, but because the people here won't allow it." The older guard from that day raised a hand from the back. "We've seen it," he said. "Stopped it twice this year. Quiet, respectful, quick." His words carried the satisfaction of someone who'd witnessed the change firsthand. Maya nodded. "That's the point. The best version of this work is when it doesn't make headlines, because it's handled right away, the right way." The room was quiet, not from tension but from focus. Even the phone's recording seemed steadier, as if the people holding them understood they were capturing something worth preserving. Maya took a step forward. Discrimination doesn't always announce itself with a glass of water. Sometimes it's a missing invitation, a cold look, a question asked differently depending on who's answering. The work we've done here doesn't mean we're perfect. It means we're paying attention. It means when we see it, we act. And it means we've built the kind of company where you can trust that speaking up will lead to change, not retaliation. She let the pause stretch, scanning the faces in front of her. "I'm asking you to keep that alive, because a culture isn't a set of policies, it's a set of habits. And those habits have to be practiced every day." Aaron looked at her, then at the crowd. "We didn't just recover from a crisis, we used it to make ourselves better. And if other companies can take anything from this year, it's that you don't need to wait for a crisis to start doing the right thing." Maya's voice lowered slightly, but it seemed to reach every corner of the lobby. "Discrimination thrives in silence. Record, document, and demand better. Your story could be the one that transforms an entire industry. Share this now, someone you know needs to hear it." Applause rose, not in the awkward bursts of a corporate event, but in a steady, full way. Phones stayed up recording the final moment, ready to send it beyond the glass doors into the world outside. And as the sound filled the atrium, it was clear the echo of that one voice, a year ago, had not faded. It had only grown stronger.